Greetings, children, and welcome to my chamber. My name is Rotherick Gastblood, and I'm your host of Tales from the Dark Chamber. This week, we have a great show for you. Tales to make your skin crawl. Each week, my chambermate and I read a scary tale that we found on the internet, or perhaps left under some corpse. Either way, we think you're going to like it, and we're just dying for you to hear it. So sit right back, light a candle, and let's have a ghoul evening.
Sarah sat back down to finish her sandwich when all of a sudden a loud knock on the door, and she... Yeah? Who is it?
The ghost of... Let me
Jesus.
in, you ninny.
Rotherick, what in the world? Yes? Can I help you? I'm right in the middle of this week's episode, and
Oh, sorry to bother you, but I have a special request for this week. Can you take a look?
Rotherick, well, see, listen, I'm really trying to finish the story up, and can it wait to next week's episode?
Well, yes, but it's rather special. You see, there's a nice ghoul.
A ghoul friend, perhaps?
Well, she is rather special, I suppose. Would you be a good chap and see if you can fit it in,
Yeah, fine. Hang on. Come on. Let's go back to the microphone. All right. Yeah, come on over here. Come on over here. All right, let's take a look here. Huh. Yeah, this is not bad. Not bad at all. But I would rather finish this week's episode up, okay?
I understand. I was rather wanting to have it read this week. You know, based on the current climate of the country.
Well, I can see why you'd want to read this week. Okay, I tell you what. You sit right here and tell our listeners why we're reading this, and I'll make an exception. How's that?
So, sit here and tell them?
Yep, right here.
On the microphone?
Absolutely.
Here? Well, all right. Here goes. This is Rotherick Gastblood, and I had
Rotherick. You don't have to be so close to the mic. Lean back a little bit. About 6 to 8 inches from the mic.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You know, I'm not used to this sort of thing.
I know. Just tell the audience why I'm reading something different this week. In your own words.
Okay. So, to our beloved audience there in podcast land, this week I have requested that Woody read a special story. I think that you're going to like it, as it fits well with the current state of events here in our country. I hope that you will enjoy it as much as I did. Stay safe, carry on, and have a ghoul evening.
Oh, brother. Okay, Rotherick, move over. All right, hang tight. Okay. Yeah, I think I can edit some of that out. You don't need to sign off like that, okay? So, without further ado, I will need to read over this a bit here and, to kind of get the feel of the story. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I think I got it. So tonight's story is called Blind, a story of evil by DoorNo7. Enjoy. Blind, a story of evil by DoorNo7. They say your life flashes right before you die. I wouldn't say your life, but I would say the last few weeks. Right now, I'm sitting in a room. Around my neck is a metal band, tightly binding me to the wall behind. I can move my arms and legs, but that's all. I sit listening to the others in the room. Whispers, begging, cries, pleas, sobbing, praying. We're not here by force. Rather, we had no way to resist. That's all that I know of at this moment. That and my recollection of the past weeks. What a horror. What horror. It started after the last election in my country. We were electing the new leader for the standard term in office. The candidates had made their pitches over the last months as our country struggled with our personal situation, a plague that crippled our economy. We saw a turn in the outlook for the better. The election came and we realized this was an illusion. We did this to ourselves. We believed. We wanted to believe in change. And now our belief, our hope, is now gone. That which we so much wanted to happen, didn't. And now we pay the price. As I sat watching the election, riveted to the results, praying for our current leader to be the victor, all the results said he would not be. We had no clear winner that night, nor the next after that. The subsequent legal wrangling and political manipulation only fueled the fire of popular unrest. The country divided. As that week progressed, we learned that our former leader was defeated. At last, our country would be at peace. Or so we thought. Over the next few days, our new leader was constantly on the news, making speeches and professing new policy, the likes of which were unprecedented and, in some arguments, illegal. Changes so sudden that the nation had no time to react. Freedoms, access, media. It was all now controlled, not that it hadn't been prior, just now more apparent. First was the lockdown. We could go nowhere. We were effectively shut off from others, even our own neighbors. Travel was restricted on the guise of not spreading the pandemic. That dreaded disease that seemed to have come from nowhere, but is reported to be more dangerous than any previous plague. It was a lie. Control. They wanted control. They wanted us to be placid, subservient, subjugated. And we let them. Time went on. One evening, I was trying to find some diversion on the television that would take my mind away from the events. The leader in the media had every channel controlled as well, and he was finishing up an address. Fortunately, my TV was equipped with the power off, so I turned it off and went to bed. I can still hear his aged, gentle, yet vapid voice resonating in my head as I turned off the light. Peace once more before the dawn. I was awakened by my cellular phone's alarm promptly at 7. Its ring was annoying, but effective. Without looking and quite by instinct, I managed to slide my thumb across the screen, turning the alarm off. I had no reason at that moment to rise from the bed. It was quiet, very quiet. Nonetheless, I maintained my position in bed. The next few moments of thought kept me from regaining the few precious minutes of sleep I desired, and I opened my eyes and stared ahead. Nothing. I saw nothing. Okay. I must not have opened my eyelids, or it's still night. Perhaps my phone had the wrong time on it, or, silly me, I set the alarm wrong. No, I was awake. It was morning as far as I knew, and by gently testing to see if my eyelids were shut, I poked my finger into my eye. Ow! I exclaimed. What the fu— I could see nothing. Nothing at all. I was, in effect, blind. I looked all over as best I could for something to test to see if I was indeed blind. Nothing, but I had no sense of sight at all. As I stood up, testing the floor beneath, I managed to make my way across the room to the door. My dog, already ahead of me, was anticipating his morning meal, but that was the last thing on my mind. Arlo would have to wait until I sorted this out. I stumbled as best as I could to the kitchen, relying on my sheer memory to guide me where I was supposed to be. But of course, that had its challenges. As best I could, I reached for the cans of dog food, slid my feet tenuously across the floor to where I remembered his bowl was, picked it up, and proceeded to scoop out the meal. At last, Arlo was taken care of. In a moment of clarity, I decided to see if it was morning by sheer feel. I made my way to the outside laundry room where, as logic would have it, if it were morning, there would be sunlight shining with its warm glow. I did feel the warmth and concluded that it must be day. Piercing into my ear from next door was the panicked scream of Sarah, my next-door neighbor. She was screaming bloody murder and sobbing. I could hear her muffled crashes and bumping coming from the adjacent house and called out to her, "Sarah! Sarah!" Alas, there was no reply short of more horrifying wailing. She was in trouble, and though I was temporarily handicapped, I felt compelled to help her. I made my way across the kitchen, feeling every wall and obstacle, through the dining room to the front room. I knew the house well, and I knew what should be in my way. A right to the front door, and finally the handle. I opened it and stepped out onto the porch, the storm door straight ahead. Once outside, I turned immediately right, feeling the ground below me and knowing that soon I will be encountering the crabapple branches assaulting me from the front corner of the house. A few branches later, I was on her driveway. Slowly, using my bare feet to feel for her cement walkway, I used it to follow to her porch steps. Made it. Okay, now up to the door. As I approached, I continued to hear more wailing and screams along with the occasional slams that I assumed were her colliding with her furniture. I knocked and called, "Sarah! Sarah! Are you okay?" She yelled back, "No!" I implored, "Come to the door. Let me know you're all right." As I hear her sobbing and clumsily making her way to the door, I heard the door lock disengage. The door creaked open, and I could hear her dire tone as she said, I can't see anything. I'm blind." "Sarah, so am I. I can't explain it." "What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? I can't see. I can't see anything. I'm blind. How is this happening?" I can sense the panic in her words. "Sarah, Sarah, calm down. There has to be some explanation for this. There has to be. It's daylight." All my consolations and pleas met with the same result. She was absolutely in panic, and I don't blame her. We sit on her front porch. We tried to make sense of this, but came to no conclusions. We were without sight. "Sarah, listen. Listen. No sounds. No cars. Nothing." "What do you mean?" she asks. "Do you hear any cars go by? Have you heard any activity at the factory across the street?" I inquire. "No, but I don't care about that. Damn it, I'm blind," Sarah says with a complete sense of terror in her voice. I know. So am I. But listen. Can you hear anything?" Again, I question. "No." "Right. It's like the whole world has stopped," noticing that all human sounds seemed vacant. "What the hell does that have to do with anything?" "I don't know, but it's not normal. Do you have a radio?" I ask. "A radio? No one has a radio anymore. What?" "I do. We can see if there's any news or any indication of what's happening. Come with me." "Where to?" she tenuously asks. "Back over here. To my house," I advise. We cautiously make it back over to my house, and I lead her to the couch. I fumble around to the old stereo system I have in the corner. I feebly feel my way across the face and manage to turn it on. Static. I find the channel presets on the front and activated each one of them. Static. It's as if there's no one on air. "What does that mean?" Sarah asks. I don't know, but whatever it is, it can't be good. For hours we sit, trying to comprehend what's happened and contemplating our next actions. What to do, how to survive. The simple act of cooking now seems as distant to us as if we had never cooked before. "Listen, let me see if we have water and electricity. I know the radio seemed to work, but if I can get the stove to work, then maybe we'll be able to eat something," I said. "Okay." I feel my way to the kitchen, turn on the stove, and place my hand above what should be the eye. No heat. Damn, no heat. Well, The power seems to be off now. It'll be getting cold soon. I have some blankets, and since I do have to take care of Arlo, you can stay here. I know it's not how you wanted to spend an evening, but in this case, it's our best option." "Thank you," she interrupted. "Yeah, that'd be okay, I guess. But what about food? I have a few things that could be eaten raw. I only wish we had something to cook with, or even cook on," I replied. That night, we ate what was available and dozed off as best what I can determine to be late evening. There were sounds from outdoors of insects and dogs, but no humans. This was quite odd as our neighborhood was relatively populated. As morning came, we found our condition the same, blind as could be. No light we could see, and we had to clumsily move around in the vacuum of our eyesight. Sarah cried out as she noticed the same thing. We both sat for an hour or so, with only the ticking of my mantel clock as the other noise. The clock, I could tell the time by feeling the clock face, and since the house was noticeably warmer, I could tell it was daylight. I made it over to the clock, opened the door, and felt the face and hands. "Seems like it's about 8:30 or so," I said. "In the morning or evening?" Sarah asked. "That I have no idea, but I would say it's morning." The day wore on, and we were getting increasingly hungry. I did manage to find some other edibles around and even contemplating eating Arlo's dog food. But fortunately, I was able to find some cooked frozen foods that, if left longer, would indeed spoil. "Listen, we need to find out if there is anyone else around. We need to try to leave this house," I insisted. "Why? What good would that do us? Suppose everyone was dead. Suppose—" "Hey, we can't be the only ones alive. We can't be." "I don't know, but I'm willing to see if there's anyone else around, even if we have to grope our way to every door," I said, trying to convince Sarah of that effort. We make it outside in time to hear more wailing and crying. Those around us have realized they met the same fate as Sarah and I and are trying to come to grips with the ordeal. Some have ventured outside and calling for help and pleading for assistance. No one can see. We're all blind. It's utter madness. The whole neighborhood has somehow undergone a transformation from the normal to now utter sightlessness. No other sounds can be heard than the hysteria of people trying to grasp the situation. Throughout the night, we hear the mass of souls outside wandering aimlessly in the area, banging into doors and houses and cars and whatever obstacles are in their sight-free way. Nothing but people, crying, sobbing, in bitter agony. Later the next day, we hear banging on doors, announcements to let them in or they'll break down the doors, and the cries of people as they're being forcefully dragged from their home and into what we can only determine large vehicles. One by one, they seem to be hurting people. For what reason, we don't know. "Open up in there! Open up! Do you hear us? Open up, or we'll break the door down!" yelled the men from the other side. Their accents were not from this country, and we feared a coup had happened. We know from this that they can see, and they're here to... The door seems to fly apart, or at least is what Sarah and I can determine, both of us holding on to each other in sheer terror. They grab Sarah, and she lets out a hysteric scream as the sound of her being dragged out becomes apparent. And then me. The men, or at least I think, grab me and hoist a rope around my neck and secure my arms behind my back. "Where are you taking us? Why can't I see?" I demanded as the rope tightens to the point I cannot speak. "Shut your face, or we'll end you right here, understand?" comes the grizzled reply. I was led out silently into what I can only describe as a large vehicle. Soon we were in transit. But to where? "Sarah! Sarah!" I managed to squeak out, but no reply. Sarah was either not there or couldn't speak as well. My next experience was being led out of the vehicle into what I can only imagine some sort of holding area. People seemed to be wandering without direction, arms out, bumping into each other, shaking and flinching at every touch. It was as if we were cattle at slaughter, but cattle could still see. People were talking, screaming, praying, and moaning, calling out to each other and to loved ones. One by one, we were told to move towards a voice that resounded like no other. It was, well, if I had to describe it, a voice of pure evil. unearthly, deeply resonant, and laughing in a maniacal manner as if the orator was somehow proud of the accomplishment and control. The voice did sound familiar, though. It was reminiscent of the leader's third in command, a woman whose power we have seen rise since the election. We feared her and her regime, and knew that should our previous leader be defeated, she and she alone would seize ultimate power. But we had no idea as to the extent of her diabolical plans. We were somehow blinded by the media, blinded by our lack of faith, blinded in the lack of trust in our previous leader. She betrayed us. She betrayed humanity, and she betrayed the new leader. He himself was eliminated, presumably on the first few days, though we saw him on the news and in addresses. That, too, was a lie. She had sold herself to Satan for power, and the cost? We humans. We were moved closer and closer to what seemed to be a warmer and warmer area. Large metal structures opened, or, as it sounded like, metal doors, exposing a cavernous room, which echoed with the sound of people who were forced to enter. One by one, we were moved into position and told to sit, which at this point was not pleasant, as the seating was incredibly hot and almost too intolerable to bear. After which, the metal bands were affixed to each of us, many of us demanding the reason for such despicable treatment. The only answer? Sacrifice. As I sit here listening to the people in the room with their begging, crying, wailing, praying, screams of terror, I notice a peculiar smell, the smell of a gas entering the room, as the overhead hiss indicates its direction. This is not 1930s Nazi Germany, rather modern day. This is genocide. But why? Why blind us? Why exterminate us in this manner? Fire. How inhumane. And then I hear the click and... Blind. A Story of Evil by DoorNo7.
Well, folks, that's our story tonight. Rotherick and I hope you enjoyed it. We sure had a great time bringing it to you, and we really appreciate you listening. Tune in next week when we bring you another chilling tale from the dark chamber. And just a note, if you're an aspiring author and you want your story read here on Tales from the Dark Chamber, send us a note at talesfromthedarkchamber@gmail.com. If it creeps old Rotherick out enough, we'll air it. And subscribe to our podcast for notification of our next new episode, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Tales from the Dark Chamber and follow us on Instagram or Twitter. If you want your story read for your own use, or you just want to have it, check out my website at woodygvoiceover.net. You can order there, or you can find me on Upwork as Woody G. And again, thank you for listening tonight.